Hello, today we're going to be talking about reading comprehension, specifically how to understand a complex text and how to answer questions about it. So what is reading comprehension? It is the ability to process and understand a text. This would include both its basic and its implied meanings, so the deeper things in a text as well as the simple facts in a text. Naturally, this becomes a bit harder as you read harder texts, so things that are more complex or advanced are naturally going to be harder to comprehend. There are also many kinds of texts, like poems, short stories, various kinds of nonfiction, and you might find certain kinds of texts a little bit harder to comprehend. But the big question here is, how do I improve my reading comprehension? And for that, we do have a few strategies. The first one here is pausing. So if you are reading through a text and you notice, hey, I don't know what I just read, or I'm a bit confused right now in the story, even though I've been reading it, then you could pause where you are and kind of take a step back into what I'd call a helicopter view and try to do a few things and ask yourself a few questions to see if you can get yourself back to where you're understanding the text. So first of all, you could go ahead and summarize the text from what you do know has happened. You want to summarize it. You'd also piece together the events that have led to this point and try to picture it in your head as if you were watching a movie, which we will get into in a bit more detail here in a minute. You could also try putting yourself in a character's shoes. So if you were in this particular situation as this character, how might you feel or think in this circumstance? So you want to kind of be able to picture that, and that might help you understand the situation a little bit better. Also, don't be afraid to question yourself. So you might have a thought or opinion that you think is what is going on in the story, and it actually might not be happening in the story. You might have just imagined it. So you want to make sure that you kind of fact check yourself there and ask yourself, where is the evidence for this thing I think is in the text? And if you can't find it, then it's probably not there. And if you can find it, then there's your evidence. Also, something to think of is that there may be a hint or clue in the text that you are not seeing. So you want to ask yourself if there is a hint or a clue. So that could be maybe there is some foreshadowing in the text. Maybe you see something that makes you think, maybe something is going to happen later that this is kind of hinting at. Or maybe there's a quality about a character that kind of reveals maybe a bias they have, or some sort of hidden agenda that is kind of not said specifically, but kind of implied. Those kind of things are a little more subtle, and sometimes pausing yourself and asking about it can help you figure those things out. Another thing I see students kind of struggle with sometimes is that they read so fast that they actually skip through details and they don't bother to reread, so then they just lose all those details. So even if you can read quickly, it doesn't necessarily always mean that you should read quickly. So you can pause and ask yourself, am I reading too quick to really comprehend what is happening? So you might have to slow down. And on the flip side of that you might not think is a bad thing, but am I reading too slow to understand what's happening? So sometimes if you're reading really slow, particularly if you see a word you don't recognize, you might just want to pause or you might force yourself to stop really. And that stopping can sometimes kind of hinder your comprehension, because then you kind of forget what's happening in the story just because you're so fixated on some word that you don't understand or something like that. So make sure that you are also reading fast enough that you can actually picture what's going on and follow along with the story, because you don't want to be lost. And if you do find yourself pausing on accident because you're fixating on a word, then just reread a bit to kind of get yourself back into the mindset and kind of play through the story again. And another thing that we are all guilty of is zoning out sometimes. You might read a paragraph, you might read a page, or even more than that, and realize that you zoned out during the entirety of that reading. Please do not continue on from there. This should be obvious, but please reread if that happens. Next thing, how to improve reading comprehension by imagining. Unlike a movie that is just super easy and it just pictures everything for you, a book you do have to imagine and picture what is happening. Sometimes this is a good thing because you might have the best animation per se in your mind if you can imagine it. But in all seriousness, imagining helps you understand what's happening. So you need to be able to picture what's happening in a text. And there's a few differences depending on who you are that will help you picture what's going on. I broke it up by your learning style, so you want to definitely know if you are a visual, auditory, or tactile learner, and you can take a test online or something to figure that out if you don't know. But there's some different strategies that I'll recommend to each of these for helping you picture what's going on in text. For visual learners, pretty simple. You just want to picture what is going on in the text. Pretty self-explanatory. You want to definitely make sure that you are using your imagination, and as you get more information, you can kind of correct that imagination. But you want to definitely make sure that you are actively imagining it. Just because you're a visual learner doesn't necessarily mean this is easy, but that is basically what you got to do. In addition to this, if you want a little bit more help, you could try sketching. Maybe while you read, you can pause or something and sketch what you think a character looks like, or pay close attention to details that describe what something looks like so that you can picture it better. Okay, now for auditory learners, how do you picture what is going on in a text? For you, you are going to want to read out loud and you're going to talk through what is happening in the pictures, or so that you can picture it. So you want to definitely be hearing actual words. You want your ears to be working. Don't just read in your mind. Don't just talk in your mind. You want to actually listen to yourself or somebody else talking to actually comprehend a little bit better and be able to picture what's going on. I know this isn't always practical, as sometimes you might be in a test or something like that, and that kind of stinks. But a lot of times in this test, they also have audiobooks available, so they might have an audio version of the text that you might be able to listen to, so you can look into that. Either way, you can use audiobooks, and you can also have a conversation with somebody about the text, and any way that you are using your ears to help you picture stuff is going to help you as an auditory learner. Similarly, with a tactile learner, you are all about basically feeling stuff with your senses. So you're going to, quote unquote, feel your way through what is happening in the story. And what I mean is that, my face is kind of blocking some of it there, but you want to kind of summarize and say, okay, what is happening in this scene? If a character, for example, walks through a door, you could touch your table and imagine that you are opening that door. So maybe pretending that you are touching a doorknob or something like that. It may sound silly, but you being able to associate those things of touch with picturing the story could actually be helpful for you understanding. So you want to make sure that you are incorporating touch and movement as much as possible, because that is going to be what's going to help you understand. Other things you could do or have is you could have some fidget objects that you could have, or you could try pacing while you're picturing the text, or you could also try writing or drawing. Anything where you are using your senses and movement is going to help you as you are trying to picture what's going on in the text. So that is all about imagining, another strategy for reading comprehension. And the last strategy here we're going to talk about is recording, or kind of like note-taking. You want to have some sort of way to record your thoughts, questions, or feelings during a text. So this is another way that you could improve your reading comprehension. So you can consider trying any combination of these recording strategies. And again, some of them might work for you, some of them might not. Everyone's different. But you can kind of assess yourself, or just try stuff out and see if it works for you. But here are a few extra things that you can try here. So you can write down your thoughts, feelings, and questions in notes. You can annotate, also, or meaning like highlighting or underlining the text if that's possible. You can draw or sketch the events, characters, or ideas in the story. You can record yourself talking through a text, like with your phone or something, and you can review all of those recordings and notes and sketches later on. And hopefully that will all help you as you're trying to comprehend a text. Alright, this is also just a reminder that texts are deep things sometimes. They have a level of depth in them. Fiction stories are pretend experiences, so they're not technically real. Well, yeah, they're not real. But experiences have basic details, but they also have hidden lessons and messages about what it is to be human. And that is, any experience has those kind of things. Foolish people, so people who are being foolish, they don't learn from experience, but wise people can learn from even someone else's experience. And they could even learn from a fictional character's experience. And that is basically what we're dealing with in English class with texts. We're dealing with pretend experiences. So just keep in mind that basically there is both the basic stuff with those experiences as well as more lessons and stuff that you can get from those experiences. So reading comprehension will definitely require that you understand the basic details about what is happening in a story, but true comprehension is also going to require that you can find or learn the lessons that an author or character reveals in a story. So true comprehension is going to be both basic details that you're going to understand, as well as being able to find those deeper meanings in a text. You want to be able to do both of those things. And it is valuable for you to be able to read and comprehend a text and find those deep meanings, because it can grow you as a person and teach you lessons that from experiences that otherwise you wouldn't have had. So your takeaway from this is that while you are reading and processing through the text and doing all these strategies I talked about for comprehending the text, also don't forget to consider what hidden lessons the text has to offer as well. And last thing with this video is I want to talk a little bit, just for a second, about test questions, because you're definitely going to be engaging with test questions or test type of questions with multiple choice and things like that with the text. So this is just a little blurb on kind of some strategies that you should take away with reading comprehension. So first of all, you definitely want to understand the basic details and deeper meanings of the text before answering questions. You always want to base your decisions on evidence from the text, so don't just do something that you think might be in the text. You want to definitely know there's evidence pointing toward an answer. You want to pay attention to wording. Sometimes this can really mess up a student, that they might think it said one thing, but it actually said not that thing. So that could, just that word not, for example, can throw people off, so definitely pay attention to wording. And you also want to kind of have the idea that every answer might be the correct answer, and you don't know necessarily if you have the best answer. For that last one there, you want to make sure that you are picking the best one, because there might be a very good answer in there, but a very good answer could be the wrong answer, and you want to get the best one. So just make sure you read through all of the options and consider all of them, and make sure that you are using, make sure that they are backed with text evidence and everything like that. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you, and that's it.